The champagne flute shook in my hand so hard the bubbles jumped like they were trying to escape. My mom stood at the head of the table, smiling that polished, church lady smile, while everyone waited for me to say something nice. And then my phone, face down on the table, buzzed. Not a text, a call, from a blocked number. My stomach dropped because I already knew what it was. They only called like that when they needed money. I lifted the phone, smiled like I was going to the bathroom, and said, "Excuse me," while my mom's eyes followed me like a camera. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, the noise of laughter softened behind the closed dining room door. I answered, put it to my ear, and said in the calmest voice I could fake, "New number, who's this?" And with my thumb, I hit record. Because if you were in my shoes, if your own parents treated you like an emergency fund with a heartbeat, wouldn't you want proof just once of what they really sounded like when they thought nobody was listening? The voice on the other end wasn't confused. It wasn't even surprised. It was my mother's voice, sharp and hurried, like she'd been waiting to pounce. "Maya," she hissed, like my name was a password. "Don't play games. We don't have time. We need you." And right then, standing barefoot on cold tile, listening to her panic through the speaker, I realized this wasn't going to be one of their usual little guilt trips. This was something bigger. Something that would blow up my entire life. But to understand how I ended up in that hallway, recording my own mother like she was a stranger trying to scam me, let me take you back. Because this didn't start at that dinner. It started years ago, with a cracked screen and a voicemail that said, "Call me back, it's important." And the kind of important that always meant my wallet. The first time I remember it clearly, I was 23, and living in a studio apartment that smelled like burnt coffee and wet laundry because the dryer in the basement never worked right. My phone lit up at 11:47 p.m. with "Mom." I hesitated. I always hesitated, because the calls never started with, "How are you?" They started with, "We have a situation." But I answered anyway, because some part of me still believed one day it would be different. "Hi, Mom." Her voice came sweet, too sweet. "Oh, honey, you awake? I didn't wake you, did I?" "No," I lied. "I'm up. What's going on?" A pause, like she was arranging the story in her head. "It's Evan. His car. Something happened. It's not his fault. The transmission just went." I stared at my peeling ceiling paint. "Okay, so he needs a mechanic?" "He needs a reliable car," she corrected, like I was being slow on purpose. "He has work. He can't be stranded. And you know your father and I, we're stressed right now." I waited. I knew the next line. "Maya," she said softly, "could you help? Just this once? You're always so responsible. You've always been the one we can count on." There it was, the compliment that was actually a hook. "How much?" I asked. "Well," she breathed out, like the number physically hurt her. "The quote is 1,700. But anything helps, even 1,000. We'll pay you back." They never paid me back. I sent the money anyway. And the next day, Evan posted an Instagram story from a bar, holding a drink with a little umbrella, laughing like life was a joke somebody else paid for. Tell me honestly, if you saw that after draining your savings, would you have confronted him? Because I did. I called him that night. He answered on the third ring, loud music in the background. "Yo, did your transmission just go, Evan?" He laughed like I told a funny story. "What are you talking about?" "Mom called me. I sent money." "Oh," he dragged the word out. "Yeah, that. Thanks, sis. You're a lifesaver. You were at a bar." So, the car?" "Yeah, I mean," he said like he was bored. "It's fine now." "Fine now?" My voice went higher. "I sent $1,700? I didn't ask you to. That's on you." That line. That's on you. It was the first time I felt something snap inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet crack. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat on my bed, looking at my bank app, and realized the people who were supposed to protect me had trained me to pay for their love. And it only got worse. Every few weeks, a call. Dad's blood pressure medication wasn't covered. Mom's car needed tires. The electric bill was unexpected. Evan messed up his rent again. And always, always, always the same script. "You're the only one we can count on. You're so mature. You've always been the strong one." And if I hesitated even for a second, Mom's voice would cool.
"Well, I guess we'll figure something out. Your father will work overtime. He's not as young as he used to be, but Whatever. Don't worry about us. Which was her way of saying, if you don't pay, you're hurting us. You won't believe how heavy guilt can feel when it's been handed to you your whole life. By 26, I'd stopped counting how much I'd given them. It was easier to pretend it was just helping than admit it was a pattern. I worked hard too, like really hard. I'd landed a job in operations at a mid-sized company, the kind of job where nobody claps for you, but everything collapses if you're not there. I took extra shifts, learned new systems, built myself into someone reliable. Because deep down, I thought reliability would finally earn me respect. Spoiler, it didn't. One Saturday, I drove to my parents' house unannounced. I hadn't done that in years, but I wanted, proof of something. Proof they lived the way they acted on the phone. I walked in and immediately heard laughter. Evan was sprawled on the couch, wearing a new watch that caught the light every time he moved his hand. My mom was in the kitchen making snacks like she was hosting royalty. "Oh, Maya," she said, surprised, but not delighted. "You should have called." I was in the neighborhood, I lied again, because my real reason sounded pathetic. Evan looked up and smirked. The ATM came to visit. My dad chuckled. Not a big laugh, not a proud one, just enough to show he was entertained. I froze. "What did you say?" Evan didn't even blink. "Relax, I'm kidding." Mom waved her hand like swatting a fly. "He's joking. You're so sensitive." Sensitive. That word. It was like they kept a dictionary of ways to make me feel wrong for reacting to their wrong. I looked around. On the counter was a glossy brochure for a Caribbean cruise. "What's that?" I asked. Mom's eyes flicked to it. "Oh, nothing. Just a little maybe. Your father and I deserve something nice, don't we?" I swallowed. "You told me you couldn't cover your electric bill." Dad's face hardened. Well, I guess we'll figure something out. Your father will work overtime. He's not as young as he used to be, but whatever. Don't worry about us." Which was her way of saying, if you don't pay, you're hurting us. You won't believe how heavy guilt can feel when it's been handed to you your whole life. By 26, I'd stopped counting how much I'd given them. It was easier to pretend it was just helping than admit it was a pattern. I worked hard too, like really hard. I'd landed a job in operations at a mid-sized company, the kind of job where nobody claps for you, but everything collapses if you're not there. I took extra shifts, learned new systems, built myself into someone reliable. Because deep down, I thought reliability would finally earn me respect. Spoiler, it didn't. One Saturday, I drove to my parents' house unannounced. I hadn't done that in years, but I wanted, proof of something. Proof they lived the way they acted on the phone. I walked in and immediately heard laughter. Evan was sprawled on the couch, wearing a new watch that caught the light every time he moved his hand. My mom was in the kitchen making snacks like she was hosting royalty. "Oh, Maya," she said, surprised, but not delighted. "You should have called." I was in the neighborhood, I lied again, because my real reason sounded pathetic. Evan looked up and smirked. The ATM came to visit. My dad chuckled. Not a big laugh, not a proud one, just enough to show he was entertained. I froze. "What did you say?" Evan didn't even blink. "Relax, I'm kidding." Mom waved her. "My role," I repeated. "Yeah," he said, like he was explaining a simple math problem. "Mom and Dad raised you to be stable. They raised me to be happy." Mom laughed, actually laughed like it was cute. "Evan," she scolded gently, but there was no real heat in it. My chest got tight. I looked at my dad. "You're okay with this?" He shrugged. "He's your brother." And that was it. No defense of me, no correction, no, "that's not funny." Just, "he's your brother." Do you know what that sounds like in real life? It sounds like, endure it. I left that day with my hands clenched so hard my nails left half moons in my palms. In the car, I said out loud, "I'm done." But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because being done with your family is easy to say and brutal to do. A month later, Mom called crying. "Your father's hours got cut," she sniffed. "We're behind. Just until next paycheck, please, Maya." And I sent money again. Because the guilt had claws. Because even when you know you're being used, there's a part of you that still wants to be loved. Then everything shifted the day I got a letter in the mail. It was a plain white envelope with a bank logo I didn't recognize. I almost tossed it, thinking it was junk. But something made me open it. Inside was a notice. Final attempt to contact regarding delinquent account. My name was on it. My address. My social security number partially masked. And a balance that made my throat close. $18,420.17. I read it 3 times, like the numbers would change if I stared hard enough. I didn't have an account with that bank. I hadn't taken a loan. My hands went cold. My heart thudded so loud I could hear it in my ears. Tell me, what would you think in that moment? That it was a mistake? A scam? I thought that too. Until I called the bank, went through the robotic menu, and finally got a real person. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I got a letter about a delinquent account. I think it's an error." The woman asked for verification details. Then she said, "Yes, Miss Patel, I see the account. It's a personal line of credit opened 2 years ago." 2 years ago. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I didn't open anything." There was a pause, the kind where you can hear someone choosing their words carefully. "Well," she said, "the account was opened in person at a branch. There are signed documents on file." Signed. Documents. In person. My stomach turned. "Can you tell me where the branch is?" She gave me the city. My parents' city. Not mine. I sat down so fast my knees hit the coffee table. "Ma'am," she said, "are you still there?" "Yeah," I breathed. "I'm here." The room felt too bright. Too loud. Even though it was silent.
I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but my mind did it anyway. Evan. Then the next thought slid in like a knife. Or Mom. Or Dad. Because who else had my information? Who else knew my social security number, my birthday, my first pet's name, my childhood street? Every security question banks love to ask. I hung up and immediately pulled my credit report. And that's when I saw it. Not just one account. 3. A credit card, a line of credit, and a store account. All opened in the last 3 years. All with balances. All delinquent. All not mine. My throat tasted like metal. I called my mom first, because I hated myself for it, but I still wanted it to be a misunderstanding. She answered on the second ring. "Hi, sweetie." "Mom," I said, voice shaking, "did you open anything in my name?" Silence. Not confused silence. Not "what are you talking about" silence. This was caught silence. Then she sighed like I was exhausting. "Maya," she said slowly, "why are you being dramatic?" My skin went hot. "I have letters," I said. "I have accounts on my credit report, opened in your city. Did you do this?" She clicked her tongue. "Okay, first of all, calm down." My chest heaved. "Answer the question." Another pause. Then, "Your father and I had to do what we had to do." My knees went weak. "What did you just say?" She sounded defensive now, annoyed that her secret was inconvenient. "Evan needed help," she said quickly. "He was in a rough patch. We were trying to keep him afloat. And you know how banks are. If you don't have perfect credit, they don't help you. But you always had good credit because you're so responsible. So you used mine?" I choked out. "It wasn't like that," she snapped. "It was family. We were going to pay it. But then things happened." "Things happened," I echoed, my voice rising. "You committed fraud." "Don't you dare use that word. she said, suddenly icy. We are your parents. That line again. We are your parents. Like it was a crown. Like it was a weapon. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. Mom, I said, do you understand what you did to me? She scoffed. Oh my God, Maya, you're acting like we ruined your life. You did, I said, and my voice surprised me with how steady it sounded. You did ruin my life. She went quiet, and then her tone shifted, soft, wounded. So you're going to turn on us after everything we've done for you? There it was, the guilt leash. I felt it tug, hard. But something in me, maybe that quiet crack from years ago, finally split open. I hung up. I just hung up. And for the first time in my life, I didn't immediately call back to apologize. Instead, I drove to a credit union the next morning, sat across from a fraud specialist, and said, I need to lock everything down. I froze my credit, I filed disputes, I changed passwords on everything. I opened a new bank account at a different bank. I changed my phone number. And I told myself, I'm done. For real this time. But of course, being done doesn't mean they stop. It just means the game gets uglier. They started calling from blocked numbers, from my aunt's phone, from my dad's work line, leaving voicemails like, Maya, pick up. This is your mother. Maya, we need to talk. Don't do this. You're breaking your father's heart. Breaking his heart. As if he hadn't broken my future with a pen. I didn't answer. Not once. Until the night I got an email from an unknown address with one sentence. If you don't help us, you'll regret it. No signature. No explanation. Just a threat. That's when I realized something was seriously wrong. Because my parents weren't just asking anymore. They were cornered. And cornered people do reckless things. I called a lawyer. Her name was Diane, and she had the kind of voice that made you sit up straighter. She listened while I explained everything, my words tumbling out like I had been holding my breath for years. When I finished, there was a pause. Then Diane said, Maya, you need to file a police report. My stomach flipped. On my parents? Yes, she said firmly. Because if you don't, you're accepting responsibility. And if they've opened accounts in your name already, there's a chance it gets worse. Worse. That word felt like a trapdoor opening beneath me. What do you mean worse? I asked. Diane exhaled. Identity theft often escalates. They may have used your information for larger loans, property, taxes, things you haven't found yet. I swallowed hard. Okay. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. I filed the report. And I didn't tell them, not yet. Because part of me still wanted to see what they would do. I wanted to know how far they'd go when the money stopped. And the answer came on a random Tuesday afternoon, while I was in the grocery store, choosing between two kinds of pasta sauce. My phone buzzed. Block number. My pulse spiked. I stared at the screen, and for a second I almost didn't answer. Because answering meant opening the door again.
But then I thought about those accounts, those threats, that dinner I'd been invited to, my mom's text earlier that week. Family dinner Saturday, your father's birthday. Be there. It wasn't an invitation, it was a command. And suddenly I knew. They weren't inviting me to celebrate, they were inviting me to corner me. So I answered right there, in aisle 7,